moment, we don't actually have any competitors yet. And if there was April, that's amazing for us because we've obviously got a huge head start on everyone else. So obviously there's going to be other pools that come out, but we're doing fantastically so far. So we don't actually have any competitors yet. If there was. Okay, now I'm just going to dive into some of the tech behind Rocket Pool. So I'll try not to make it overly techy. Basically, smart contracts, everyone knows, or if you don't know what that is, those are basically, they're programs that live on the blockchain and they can execute code and enforce rules autonomously. So these are the meat and potatoes of Rocket Pool. It has, I think, 8 or 9 smart contracts which talk to each other. Rocket Pool smart contracts are in this Solidity. It's a contract-oriented high-level language, and it's very similar to, its syntax is very similar to JavaScript. So if you are familiar with JavaScript, it's a typed language which is a little bit different to JavaScript, but it does bear many resemblances anyway. And it actually targets the Ethereum virtual machine, which is basically Ethereum's computer. So it can execute these smart contracts for you. Rocket Pool's contracts accept either from users or businesses. They can also create other smart contracts themselves, and they also monitor the status of the network and talk to all the smart nodes in the network, as we saw in the previous diagram. Rocket Pool's contracts use a hub-spoke topology, which that basically ensures every contract in the network to be upgradable. I'm sure we all know about the DAO. When that happened just a year and a bit ago now, that was basically a bug in smart contract, which cost $30–40 million in the end. So, and one of the reasons why Ethereum Classic exists today was because of a moral dilemma with basically essentially rolling back this attacker's or taking the funds away from this attacker by forking the Ethereum blockchain. So. Basically the DAO wasn't upgradable, so it's a huge emphasis now for smart contract developers to make their smart contracts upgradable. It's not super easy to do, but there are several methodologies out there now. So if you just Google upgrading smart contracts, you should be able to come up with several solutions. I've opted for the hub-spoke topology, so this basically has one central contract which contains the addresses of every other contract that Rocket Pool can talk to. So if we do need to upgrade one of those, we just simply tell the hub contract to change the address of a certain contract. Then every other contract in the network will only access the latest version of that contract and the old hub one. So that's a hub-spoke topology anyway. Smart nodes. So these are basically full Ethereum nodes that contain a copy of the blockchain that our smart contracts talk to. They're distributed around as many cloud hosting providers as we can and spread out as much as we can to increase decentralization and redundancy. They use parity, which is a current type of node software that you've either got that or Geth, or there's a couple other ones too, but we've opted for parity. These nodes basically talk to Casper, and they're responsible for earning the interest of Rocket Pool's users by validating the transaction on the blockchain. So as I said in the very first or second slide, the new consensus mechanisms requires nodes to validate the transactions on the network for Casper. So our nodes will do this, and they will also talk to our main smart contracts quite often to make sure everything's going smoothly. You can get penalized if your node goes down and Casper can't talk to your node anymore, and it was meant to do some validating for Casper. So you can incur penalties by not having these nodes online. So they're not normal nodes. We actually have, each smart node has a background process written in Node.js. It basically allows it to listen to events that happen on the main smart contract. This means our smart contracts can essentially issue commands to these nodes and vice versa. The nodes themselves can also write to the blockchain and have the smart contracts listen for that themselves. So it's essentially a two-way street. Nodes can also talk to each other via the blockchain. So using these background processes, they will basically listen in the background for events happening on the blockchain and do what they need to do when they get the command to do it. Each node in the Rocket Pool network is actually required to report its server load to the main smart contract every 15 minutes. This is basically a combination of the amount of cores that the server has divided by a couple of variables. But it basically means it can report a certain server load that is can be applied to basically any kind of server, regardless of how much CPU it has, how much hardware it has, or anything like that. It will report back to the smart contract every 15 minutes. Smart contract will then, when it receives new users from the public or from businesses signed into Rocket Pool, it will basically use this information to delegate the new users to a smart node with the least amount of work. So that essentially load balances the network regardless of where these nodes are hosted, because they don't use any proprietary node balancing software. It uses a blockchain to balance the nodes. So I'm not sure if there's too many other places actually done load balancing via blockchain yet, so we may be first in that regard, but it's been working great so far. All right. Obviously, web interfaces are a big thing. So Rocket Pool's front end is going to be a combination of HTML, JavaScript, and a Web 3.js framework and truffle compiled contracts. So this is an example of the beta designs which are currently being done. So we're basically going to try and keep the main interface as friendly and as big as possible. I don't know if many people have used too many Ethereum-driven applications on the web yet. You basically need a browser using a Chrome plugin such as MetaMask, or using a Ethereum browser like Mist. This will allow you to connect to the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, through a regular web page. A lot of the ones currently floating around, there's a few decentralized exchanges and whatnot. They're great, but they are rather clunky. So one of their main goals is to make it as smooth, as easy to use as possible. We don't want users getting frustrated when a transaction gets sent to the blockchain, doesn't come back for another 20, 30 seconds, whatever, and they're stuck seeing a loading screen the whole time. Which is actually some of the case in some of the apps out at the moment. So yeah, so our goal with that is make it big, friendly, and easy to use. So yeah, we'll see how we go on that front. These are currently under work at the moment. Okay, so basically what I've done, so to get Rocket Pool to its point, these are basically the three main tools which I've used. Now these are just personal preference. There's many good editors and frameworks out there. This is basically the ones I've found the most reliable for me personally. So everyone may have their own option when it comes to developing tools and frameworks. Basically, VS Code is a Microsoft IDE editor. It's available, it uses Electron, so it's available on Mac and Linux as well. It's a free editor. It's got a Solidity add-on, which is brilliant. You can compile contracts pretty much as you're writing them. It's been phenomenally easy to use anyway, and it's got great syntax highlighting and link processing and all that stuff as well. Deploying contracts. So I'm sure you've all heard of Truffle. It's a great framework. You can test using it. You can track deployments and also deploy contracts to the Ethereum blockchain seamlessly. So it's a brilliant tool. There's a couple other frameworks out there. I think Ember's another one. I've used it briefly, but I did prefer Truffle. And I use that one to produce my daily driver at the moment. Yeah, so obviously if you're testing contracts, it'd be a very expensive way of doing it on the live Ethereum blockchain. So obviously you want to set yourself up with a local blockchain using test RPC. So this is basically a local simulated blockchain. It combines with Truffle brilliantly. So you can actually test your smart contracts out on a simulated blockchain. And it's brilliant. It's quick and easy to use, and I can't see why you use anything else. You can also actually set up local blockchains using full node software like Parity. They actually have a feature similar to Test RPC. That's a bit more at the advanced end of the town. So if you are just starting out or you want to do some quick testing, Test RPC is the way to go. Yeah, I use it all the time. So yeah, just a quick summary of what Rocket Pool is. Decentralized application that controls a decentralized nodes, aimed at helping users and business to earn interest on Ether when it integrates with Ethereum's consensus protocol in 2018 for Casper. What kind of tech does it use? Like I've probably parodied on about 10 times already. Rocket Pool is composed of smart contracts, smart nodes, and a web front end. They're all written in Solidity, which if you haven't had the chance to try it, I thoroughly recommend you do. It has an initial learning curve, which can be a bit hard when you're not familiar with working with blockchains, but stick with it because good Solidity developers can pretty much name their price nowadays. With the amount of software coming out, the amount of projects coming out on Ethereum, which is only going to get 10 times more over the coming months. If you can get a good handle on Solidity now, or you can have some time to dedicate to it, I say go for it. It'll definitely pay itself off anytime you put into it, because yeah, it's basically, yeah, like I said, smarter Solidity developers can pretty much name their price. The web front end mix of HTML, JavaScript, and Web2.js should be able to be used by any Ethereum browser or regular browser using MetaMask. Rocket Pool, like I just said, programmed using VS Code, Solidity plugin for compiling contracts, deployed using Truffle, and just to make testing these contracts easier, test RBC, which I said is a brilliant software. I've also got down there all the contracts to Rocket Pool are open source. So since it's basically going to be handling user funds, it's pretty much a must-have to make this stuff available publicly. So anyone can basically look through the contracts, see that I'm not trying to rob everyone blind when they invest there ever. So also it's a great place to basically see how Rocket Pool works. So if you are basically want to get a handle on Solidity, Rocket Pool's contracts, well, are fairly advanced, but if you start breaking down, they are divided up into 8 contracts, and if you just look at each one separately, you can make out how they fit in with each other. And yeah, it might be a great place to start having a play around. You can actually download the whole repo and run the alpha on your own computer. So yeah, it's more than welcome to have a play around. And if anyone wants to yeah, make any contributions to Rocket Pool, I'm well and truly open to it. Like I said, it's open source, so by all means, do a pull request if you think you've got a good idea for a great feature. So maybe we should do a hackathon on these contracts to speed things along. Yeah, by all means, like I said, it's highly open to collaboration. It's been a big thing from day one, essentially. So I work with a number of people overseas too that help out from time to time. So yeah, the more the merrier. By all means, get in there, clone the repo, go nuts with it. So. Yeah, it's still getting started. There's a lot of work to do yet. The alpha does run very well, but we're basically developing for an evolving protocol at this stage, so that, you know, anything can go wrong. But in saying that, we've got a great start. We don't have any competitors yet, which is you know, phenomenal. So and I'd say we've been a little under the radar to this point. I didn't actually do any advertising for the pre-sale, and it caught fire within a week before it started. So we're actually starting to pick up on a fair few radars now. So yeah, hopefully everything goes well in the next few months. But yeah, we'll see how we go. Awesome. Are the slides available? Yeah, I'll put them online. So yeah, yeah, by all means, yeah, I'll make sure everything here is online. You guys can all grab it afterwards anytime. So,
and one other thing, you mentioned about stopping Australians from investing. Did you also stop Americans?
Yeah, I did that, and China as well. So.
And how did you do that? Because you still could.
The pre-sale was actually it wasn't a public sale, so I actually whitelisted. Another one of the things I developed while this was a token sale platform called the Sale Agent, which is one I customized myself. So it was actually a platform that allows people to distribute tokens anytime, at any rate, and it actually alleviates all the congestion associated with token sales today. So I originally wrote this over a month or so. There's a Medium article and all that stuff on it as well. And what it allowed me to do for the pre-sale was to whitelist certain addresses for the token sale. So I basically got investors beforehand from countries that were allowing, and basically put their wallet address with the amount that they wanted to deposit, and basically added that to the token contract, or the pre-sale contract. And the pre-sale contract would then talk to the main token contract and get the token contract to issue the tokens to the pre-sale participant when they sent their other ring. So
So all your tokens were already created before you did your token.
No, they're minted when the users actually send their Ether in. So it's minted then and then. So we have a cap of 18 million, so it can never go more than that. And I think we set 45% of tokens. It was originally 25%, but then demand just went through the roof in the first few days, so we upped it to 45%. Added these users to the pre-sale contract, and these tokens are then minted the second a user sends their Ether into the pre-sale contract. So we've actually, we'll be doing another public crowd sale at the moment. I'm actually investigating the next one to allow Australians in, since Power Ledger had quite a successful Australian sale. So I'll be talking to some legal heads about that one in the next few months. Hopefully we can. We also don't have the resources that Power Ledger do. They're a much bigger entity than we're basically Brisbane, a couple of, well, basically just me at the moment. I've got a community manager and a partner who handles the business side of things. So we're not a huge outfit, but in saying that, we've already made a pretty big dent so far, and yeah, there's a lot of potential. And the fact that we don't have any competitors so far to us is a massive head start. So
it's very exciting, I think, that you guys doing this in Brisbane.
Yeah,
such a core thing for the upgrade.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Yeah, like I've always said, I hope that Brisbane can be the next China in that essence, where all the new mining for Ethereum or virtual mining done in Tesla is done through Brisbane-based companies. So
Brisbane's got good cryptographers as well.
Yeah.
So we've got the expertise here.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Small Brisbane one, but we're first to market. So let's hope we can build on that. I know there's going to be some other competitors coming out of the shadows, but our network and our smart nodes can scale extremely flexible. So depending on what Casper does, we can actually change just a couple of variables and have the network operate a different way and make it compatible with Casper. So that's hopefully the case. No guarantees.
Question? You might have mentioned it already, but will there be a hard limit on how many Ether mini pool can stake, or will there be some kind of load balancing?
That's a great question. So yeah, at the moment we can actually manually set how much we want a mini pool to store. So we can make that the minimum that's required for Casper, or we can make it much larger. So one of the main overheads with Rocket Pool is the amount of smart nodes we have in the network, because a smart node uses up bandwidth. It costs money to deploy one of these on a cloud hosting provider. So we're basically going to aim for an amount of Ether that we can cap a mini pool to, plus that will allow us to have a good amount of nodes that are distributed far and wide, but not have so many that costs, our overheads are through the roof. So it's a balancing act. But yeah, like I said, we do have a cap. We can change that at any time. Also, we do any mini pool that's actually deployed can actually be dynamically upgraded using a thing called Delegate Core, which is a special thing that it's a feature of Solidity, but we've built it into Rocket Pool. So if there is, these smart contracts are going to be staking with Casper for any 4 months minimum. So we want to make sure that these can be upgradable as well. So in saying that, we can change the amount of the limit that they can hold. So so basically if we wanted to suddenly up that a lot, we could do that now.
So it's always going to be balanced between all the mini pools, right?
Yeah.
So like a mini pool that's taking 10 times more than another one.
Yeah, so that would only incur if we did suddenly increase the limit.
Yeah.
But yes, basically the amount of load balancing is done by the server, the way it reports its resources. So it has nothing to do with actually milling amount of Ether, because some servers may have a much beefier CPU, but have much fewer mini pools attached to it. So it will still be able to accept mini pools onto it by reporting its actual server load. It gets a little confusing here, but it should be able to load balance regardless. So yeah, once you get into the network side of things, it does get a little complicated. But yeah, it's part of the issue of having a decentralized network running.
We have a question here. So.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I noticed that it's sort of like a stratum pool at this point.
Yeah, it is to agree. But unlike traditional mining, it is in that sense where, like with Stratum Pool, it does operate kind of in a similar sense, but with Stratum Pool, it's basically, I don't think they can be as decentralized as this, and they certainly can't monitor each other because they don't have smart contracts.
But,
yeah.
What kind of incentive would people actually want to use your pool?
Yeah.
To say like a traditional pool, because the load balancing aspect can be done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Basically, when Casper comes live, the existing mining is going to be phased out gradually.
But there's an existing open source implementation for proof of stake.
Yeah, there's a couple of implementations. There's an old one for Blackcoin and so forth. The actual implementation is for Ethereum is currently written in Viper, and it's not completed yet. But there is other implementations of proof of stake. They don't operate the same way that Ethereum's will. Ethereum has a lot of game theory to do with nodes and whatnot as well. So it operates a bit differently to other proof of stakes that are currently in existence. So yeah.
So what kind of incentive?
Oh, sorry. Basically, you don't need to keep a node online 24/7. You don't need 1,000 ever minimum. So basically, they're the two main selling points for Rocket Pool so far. It probably will. The amount of ether required will most likely go down in the future. But still, your average user is not going to be able to keep a node online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if they can, they need to keep it secured because there's a main attack vector with Casper we've identified where if the user get into your node and it's poorly secured, you can that user can then trigger that node to send too many messages to Casper. Casper will then treat your node as a rogue node and wipe out your deposit. So if you have over 1,000 ethers sitting with Casper and your node's not properly secured, you could have that deposit wiped out essentially. So that's would be pretty disastrous. Yeah.
It's pretty cool how you manage to do the decentralized bit.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the light bulb moments. Coming up with the design, basically, I think one of the main issues people have theorized about Casper pools for a while now because Casper's been no secret. It's been on Ethereum's roadmap for almost since it started. So a lot of people, their initial issues were to do with centralizations because you can have these pool operators, that accept deposits, but they're sitting on one big node, and if anything happened to that, everyone's deposit's gone and it's not load balanced or anything. So we managed to spread that out amongst nodes which can talk to each other. So yeah.
How have you monetized it for yourself?
So far, we basically, we don't have a working product yet. So our pre-sale was basically to seed fund the company. So that's what we're at the moment. So we're only just getting off the ground. That only just happened for us. So it went very well, but we will still be developing until Casper is live. So once Casper is live, we will then take a percentage of that user's interest that they earn. So say you have 100, you get 100 ether back in interest from Casper, we would take 5% of that, so 5 ether we would take, we end up with the other 95. So so that's how we'll monetize monetization.
What is the interest rate?
Unknown, I wish I knew, because that would our modeling this is from my accountant, by the way, so he really wants to know that as well.
It was the first question I asked.
So unknown, it's speculated between 2 and I've seen 10% thrown around. I really don't think it'll be that much, but it needs to be enough to make sure that there are nodes that want to be online securing the network. So if it's a $35 billion network, it can't be pennies. So it'll have to be something decent. So yeah, it'll be the majority of savings accounts withdrawal and decline anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's right. Have you had to tackle like insurance, like if people are putting in their deposit and you get attacked and they get stolen, you cover up to a certain amount? And
this is actually part of our token. So our RPL token, which is Rocket Pool token, is required for node to be on nodes basically. So if a node is performed to staking, say 1,000 ether, that a node is required to possess a certain amount of RPL. Not enough to cover a one-to-one protection of ether, because that would basically prohibit our growth early on. It basically shoot us in the foot early on if we need, because it would make expanding the network really expensive. So basically, the better we do, the more RPL gets consumed by the network, and hopefully RPL is then worth more. So if something does go wrong on the server, part of that server's RPL is then distributed to users that were all staking on that node as a partial form of compensation. So it was actually more intended to be a penalty for the node operator rather than compensation for the user, but it works out both ways. So I would actually like to look in the future as introducing a possible insurance market. So for other entities which large amounts of Ether, you could choose to have your deposit insured by them as a third party, who they also integrate into the network. So that's something else I'm going to be investigating in the future. So, but the problem with that then is if you have a large amount of Ether, you would actually make more by staking it than insuring people. So yeah, so we're still working around that. But in the initial versions of Rocket Pool, it'll be whatever RPL's worth will be basically what you get back. But in saying that, the only way you're going to lose any money with Casper is essentially if you're trying to cheat the network, which is you have to be intentionally doing it to lose your deposit. So there's obviously nothing we would do because that would be shooting outside.
What if you were attacked like you?
Well, that's what I was saying with the node security. So that's another big one you actually have to look out for. If someone got into some of our nodes and then basically caused that to send too many messages to Casper, because Casper is required to hear certain messages called prepare and commit. These are sent on regular intervals, and they basically say, that's basically us saying, oh, our node's saying to Casper, these are the correct blocks to validate. So if a user did want to get into one of our nodes and make it send too many of these messages to Casper, Casper would realize that and then slash our deposit. So it would obviously be phenomenally bad for us, but there are other strategies which I'm currently investigating. If we have multiple nodes in the network, we can make these messages. They can only be sent to Casper if another node in the network signs off on that message. So usually similar to a multi-sig wallet. So in doing this, if an attacker gets into one node, he also has to get into another node in the network and know which one that is. Yeah, so to make it send a faulty message. So this would essentially nullify that kind of attack. So that won't be possible in the first version of Casper because it won't allow multi-signature messages to be sent, but it is planning on later on. So yeah, we'll see how we go with that.
You see it disrupting personal investment banking?
Yeah, I do. So one of the first things I built into this was a third-party API which allows companies to use Rocket Pool's network in the background without actually seeing our front end. So I can see if the interest rate for something like Casper is much better than anything else any institution can provide, then yeah, most definitely. So
you end up seeing brokers actually.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just mentioning, the insurance market. So imagine setting an insurance market up on top of Rocket Pool. So people, these companies can insure other users' deposits. So you're essentially moving that current establishment onto a decentralized one. So,
but you need to stay. You're still taking the risk on Ether. So
yeah, exactly.
You need to stable currency before that's going to happen.
Exactly. So I mean, you deposit Ether for you deposit Ether for 4 months and then you take it out and it's suddenly worth a lot less.
Yeah.
That's only really a problem if you're dealing in fiat as well. So if you're only dealing in Ether, that's fine. It's like,
I mean, as a comparison to like the other loans that banks are offering, it's not comparable until until you start to get some decent stability.
Exactly. So obviously, hopefully that's something we can achieve, but that's up to the market. So we really have that control, but hopefully we'll find a solution to that too. Yeah.
So you were talking about the fact that there's no real competition at the moment.
Yeah.
So do you think big existing mining pools will offer this kind of services?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And if so, do you have any strategy on how to stay competitive?
No, that's a fantastic question. Probably one of the first ones we actually get asked pretty regularly. The way I see it is most current mining operations, they have millions of dollars worth of hardware, contracts with users and all that kind of sort of thing. I really think the majority of them will take the path of least resistance and just mine the next most profitable coin. Otherwise, they face the prospect of pivoting their whole business, developing a smart contract platform, which would then make their current hardware, they'd have to sell that at a loss. And then they have to compete on the smart contract scene. Obviously, that's a massive pivot for a business. So I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying some probably will, and some will probably fund an offshoot to launch something like this. But I would say the vast majority of them will definitely take the path of least resistance, and simply it's a matter of them putting their service to another coin and then keep mining. Either that or pivot your entire business type to smart contracts. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. Might not for sure, but I think the vast majority of them will just do that.
Because I also feel that online wallets could benefit from these kind of things. I mean, imagine my other wallet or something offering staking services for its users using Rock Pool network in the background. I mean, would have to do zero network setup. They could offload the risk to us, and in return, obviously, we take a cut of their users' interest. So for us, it's a win-win, and for them, it's a win-win because they don't have to set up any infrastructure or monitor it. That's all on us. So that's something we can form a few relationships in the future. So I mean, that would obviously be a killer blow if we could land something like that. So it's definitely on my agenda.
Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about mining pools because nobody's going to trust them with staking everything on chain anyway.
That's probably true, actually. But
can the smart contracts spin up and down cloud instances automatically?
They can instruct a node to do that. So it's one of our smart nodes. It can actually listen for instructions from the smart contract and say, all right, we're running near capacity. We need a new node in this sector. It will then pass an instruction to a smart node who can then access the API of that cloud hosting provider and spin up a new pre-configured instance of another smart node. So
do you use like a broker or something that you could like watch the spot instance prices on AWS and spin up in the cheapest region?
We could, yeah. No, that's something, yeah. That would definitely be another layer on top of that. We couldn't go that in depth to begin with. But yeah, in the future, you can definitely integrate it with oracles and so forth to monitor prices of cloud hosting providers. And and that would be a huge money saver. But that also depends on our capacity and how many nodes we need in the network. So yeah, there's a few variables, but it's a good idea. Yep.
Right, so I'm a bit confused now.
That's right.
You mentioned that your pool is going to run in the cloud, but at the same time it's a decentralized application.
Well, by decentralized, we mean that the node instances themselves are spread out. There's no way you can make a node decentralized because it needs to be running on hardware. So, but we can distribute these as far as wide as we can to ensure redundancy in the network as well. So, if AWS goes down, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, so we can have them all on AWS. If that goes down, that's our network gone, and we would be penalized completely. So we distribute these around. So.
Yeah, when you mentioned the apps, I had this assumption that you were running a pool within the mining community. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's very meta.
Yeah, that is. But that would be a nightmare of complexity.
Yeah.
So, a bit different, but yeah, I like where your head's at.
Do you think it would be possible in future to run the nodes on something like Goblin? So it is truly a decentralized computer.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So if you could, now that's getting meta as well. So if you could do that, and Goblin was at the capacity where it had the computation power, there wasn't any latency involved in having a node running on the network as well. In theory, I don't see why not. So. Obviously, that would be very far down the track, but that would be very cool if that was possible. It's good thinking.
7:40. So, do you want one last question, and we'll say thanks. So
yeah.
We'll wrap it up there.
Yep.
All right. So, thanks again, David, coming down. Without talking on what time is. So, next one, I'm doing a talk on coding Oracle. So, it'll be a coding demo. But anyone else wants to look at doing talks, by all means, email myself or Tom. You want to pitch your startup, etc., or the community news. So I think that's about it, and probably a talk on Geth as well. We're going to be looking at Geth in a bit more detail. So obviously teething problems today, so don't flame the group. Bring suggestions, not problems. So we'll probably cap this at 20 or 40, I think, and then we'll do the other ones over at either Fishburners or back over Fishburners or ThoughtWorks. So my one we have at ThoughtWorks, so a bit bigger room. So that's on the 11th. So and I think we're going to head over to the pub for Something Tree, where they take Ethereum stuff just across the road. So
Bakery line.
just across the road. I'm not sure. I think it's his bakery line. Oh no, we left at about 1 o'clock the other morning, so forgot where it was.
Thanks,
Treehouse. So that's the plans. I'll just stick around there. We'll probably be right there and head over there. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.